What if I told you the FBI did not think it had probable cause to raise Donald Trump's home, but the Biden Justice Department did it anyway? Newly released internal emails show that FBI agents themselves warned they did not have the legal threshold to search Mar-a-Lago, and yet the raid went forward. So, in today's episode, we're going to walk through what those documents reveal and why this matters far beyond Donald Trump. We're learning new details today about one of the most controversial law enforcement actions in modern American political history, the 2022 FBI raid on President Trump's Mar a Lago estate. And the new information raises serious questions about how that decision was actually made. According to newly released internal FBI records, agents themselves did not believe they had probable cause to carry out the search. And yet, the Department of Justice, under then President Joe Biden, approved it anyway. Those documents were released this week by Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa, the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and they offer a rare look behind the curtain at the internal debates that took place before federal agents showed up at Mar-a-Lago on August the 8th, 2022. And what they reveal is striking. The FBI had doubts. Let's start with what the FBI was saying internally. In a July 13th, 2022 email, less than a month before the raid, an FBI official in the Washington field office expressed clear frustration. Let me quote: "We haven't generated any new facts, but keep being given draft after draft after draft," the official wrote, "absent a witness coming forward with recent information about classified materials on site. At what point is it fair to table this?" A valid question. Now, that same email describes 6 weeks of investigative efforts as counterproductive. That matters because probable cause isn't a technicality, it's a constitutional requirement. It's the legal standard that protects Americans like you and me from unreasonable search and seizure. According to these records, FBI leadership believed that standard had not been met. Another internal communication states plainly that the Washington field office does not believe and has articulated to DOJ that we have established probable cause for the search warrant for a classified records at Mar-a-Lago. That's not political commentary. That's the FBI's own assessment. Now, it's also important to remember the context. Just weeks earlier, in June of 2022, Trump's legal team had complied with a subpoena and returned documents to the government. FBI officials acknowledged internally that interviews with witnesses had not produced evidence that additional classified material remained at the estate after that point. In other words, there was no new witness, no new tip, no new discovery that suddenly changed the facts on the ground. Yet the pressure to move forward did not stop because Joe Biden and the Biden administration wanted to try to nab Donald Trump. The emails show that while FBI officials were raising concerns, the Justice Department was pressing ahead. One FBI message described leadership looking for what they called a second path to justify the warrant, even without new evidence. Another email chain revealed concern that the FBI officials about how the search would look to the public. Interesting that you care what the public thinks. They emphasized that if a warrant were executed, it should be done in a professional and low key manner with awareness of the optics involved in searching the home of a former president. Now, there was nothing low key about that search. Do you remember that day? Do you remember all the national news media being alerted? Somebody tipped them off, and they show up in the early dawn hours of that day to search a former president's home? Those concerns were brushed aside, though. Court filings later revealed that a senior DOJ official, George Toscas, a top attorney in the Justice Department's National Security Division, said in a phone call that he, quote, frankly didn't give a damn about the optics. He didn't care how it looked. Ultimately, Attorney General Merrick Garland signed off on the search, overruling objections from senior FBI officials, including the head of the Washington field office at the time. So on August the 8th, 2022, dozens of FBI agents arrived at Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida. President Trump was not there. He and his family were in New Jersey. agents searched multiple areas of the property, including Trump's private office and residential quarters. According to Trump and members of his family, agents accessed a safe, entered rooms belonging to former First Lady Melania Trump. Trump later wrote that his home had been raided and said the action was unnecessary, especially given his cooperation leading up to that with authorities. He said, "This unannounced raid on my home was not necessary or appropriate," he wrote at the time. Regardless of how one feels about Donald Trump personally, the optics were unprecedented. Never before had a former president's home been searched in this manner. In June of 2023, special counsel Jack Smith charged Trump with dozens of felony counts related to the handling of classified documents. The case became one of the central legal battles of the 2024 election cycle. And that's what they wanted. That's what they were offered. They weren't looking for justice. They weren't looking for truth. They wanted Donald Trump to be fighting legally rather than being able to spend his time campaigning for the presidency. But last year, U.S. District Judge Eileen Cannon dismissed the case entirely, ruling that Smith had been unlawfully appointed as special counsel without congressional authorization. That ruling effectively erased charges stemming from the Mar-a-Lago investigation, which brings us back to today and these newly released records. Senator Chuck Grassley called the documents shocking. In a post on X, he emphasized that the FBI itself did not believe it had probable cause, yet the search went forward anyway. Grassley described the situation as a miscarriage of justice and said the records raised serious concerns about politicization inside the federal government. Now, to be clear, this does not prove malicious intent. It does not automatically mean laws were broken, but it does raise questions about process, about pressure, and precedent. If federal law enforcement can move forward with a search of a former president's home, even when agents themselves doubt probable cause, what does that say about the guardrails in place? Maybe there are no guardrails in place. What does it say about independence? And what does it mean for public trust? The FBI, for its part, says the release of these records is intended to help restore trust in the Bureau. Are you feeling more trusting of the FBI right now? In a letter accompanying the documents, an FBI assistant director said that transparency is necessary to maintain that credibility with the American people they're seeking. Whether this transparency restores confidence or maybe it deepens skepticism, that remains to be seen. This episode is now part of a broader debate in Washington about law enforcement, politics, and more importantly, accountability. Republicans are calling for further investigation into how the decision was made, who applied pressure, and whether DOJ leadership overstepped their bounds. Democrats argue that the rule of law applies equally to everyone, including former presidents. And the American public left weighing two competing concerns: accountability at the top and restraint by powerful institutions. At a very minimum, these documents confirm one thing. Inside the FBI, this raid was far from a slam dunk. There were doubts, there were warnings, and those warnings were overruled. As more records come out and congressional oversight continues, the Mar-a-Lago raid will remain a defining moment, not just for Donald Trump, but for the institutions tasked with enforcing the law. And the question now isn't just what happened, it's whether lessons were learned, because in a constitutional republic, how power is exercised matters just as much as who holds it. If you found this breakdown helpful, please hit the like button, drop a comment below, email me, joe@joeyhudson.com, and make sure to subscribe to the channel for more clear, no-spin breaking news and commentary. I'm Joey Hudson. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.